Okay, so hi, I'm actually back, and it's another day. um, but yeah, so for those of you just tuning in, I'm currently reading slash sort of live editing. Not really live editing so much as just marking sections that need work and going from there. I don't know. There's gonna be a lot of umming tonight. That's where I'm at. It's been a long day, and kind of in the mood for just sitting back and reading a chapter. So, without further ado, presenting chapter 7 of Talisman of the Winds, in which an ox driver is being tasked with carrying a talisman to an alliance in order to, well, yeah, that's basically how that goes. This chapter is chapter 7, and it's called A Crack in the Alliance. Moxitarum brought Thoughtful to where Lucy, Del Florio, and a guard of 24 had met Taharon and his men at the bottom of the ridge. Thoughtful looked unobtrusively from face to face. "Lady," Taharon said, "this is Thoughtful of Batanji, the man we sought." "He actually comes to you, Lord Del Florio." She saw it was too late. Del Florio had once more inferred that his part in the whole thing was only by her will, not his own ability. With poor grace, he said to Thoughtful, "You have the talisman with you?" Thoughtful reached under his shirt. "I have, and glad to be shut of it." Del Florio swore. "Black, bloody destroyer's teeth! How long have you been carrying it here?" Thoughtful shrugged. "A bit over 2 weeks." "Fool! You know nothing of talismans? After 7 days next to your heart, this sword will answer to none but you. It's useless, you idiot. You stupid, ox-loving lump of a... Urk!" Thoughtful's ox goad was in his hand, its point resting on Del Florio's throat. "I did not ask for this chore. A thwart wizard laid it on me in his dying moments. Being on the point of death, he did not give me lessons in the proper handling of the thing. I brought it to you, and I'm done with it. And while I will accept that you do not thank me, I will not accept insults. You understand?" "Thoughtful!" Lady Lucy spoke firmly, but not harshly. He didn't look at her. The man in front was the present problem. "Yes, lady?" "Accept my apologies. Lord Del Florio is overwrought. The talisman you bring is vital to our cause. Please put your weapon away." "Accept my apologies. Lord Del Florio..." Oops. He stood still for a moment, then nodded, and put his ox goad away. "Tortanio," Del Florio commanded. "Have your men seize this." "Taharon?" Lucy did not shout, but Taharon and his men moved around Thoughtful. Del Florio looked at them and then Lucy. "Lord Del Florio, if the talisman is attuned to him, then we will need him desperately." "More than myself, lady?" "Certainly not, but you can see that matters presently rest on a knife edge. Casting away the talisman may well mean casting aside our best hope for victory. So he may threaten me and go unpunished? As you insult him and go unpunished, we need the two of you." Wrong choice of words, she realized at once. No insult to an ox driver is equal to the least threat to Del Florio. Let me try that again. No insult to an ox driver is equal to the least threat to Del Florio de Hanavoto, at least in Del Florio's eyes. Del Florio bowed, then nothing more was to be said. "Good day to you, lady." At that point, she realized she should try to mollify him, to convince him to stay, to make the alliance sure. but she had become sick and tired of the mess. Wanted no more of this ruling nonsense, and could only think of how it would be nice to marry some farmer and spend the rest of her life raising children as he made their living with an acre of barley. So she stood, stubbornly quiet, while Delthorio and his men went off through the wood, leading their horses. As they went, Lucy heard Thockel mutter behind her left shoulder, "And good riddance to you, little Lord Delthorio." She whirled on him, swinging a gloved fist that caught him in the jaw, sending him staggering a step back, where he caught his heel on a stone and sat down heavily on the ground. As he looked up at her in surprise, she said, "I saved you from Delthorio because it seemed hardly fair that you should come so far through such danger only to be killed at the end of it. Also because, to be honest, the talisman answers to you only, so we need you living to wield it. But in the course of things, I've invented the man who can supply the largest force when it comes to fighting. It is possible that by saying difficult things and making risky promises, I can win him back. And you only utter insults like a boy safe behind your mother's skirts. Please try to be civil till you know who it is you're insulting." Thockel was just gathering himself to his feet in anger when he saw Teheran's sword in front of him, and knew without looking the rest of them had drawn swords too. Teheran spoke. "Think carefully before you speak or act, Thockel. I would hate to have wasted the time and trouble we went to in saving you, but we are her men." Thockel shook his head. "All right, I'll do nothing rash. My promise on it. Allow me to get up." Carefully, with no sudden movements, he got to his feet. Even so, Teheran was standing there beside Lucy when Thockel faced her. "I've been knocked down before, but that was as good as they come. I'll have a bruised jaw in the morning. My knuckles hurt already." "So then, can we consider ourselves to be even?" She broke into a laugh. "We can consider ourselves even. Poor Delthorio. Even is never good enough for him. He wants to be ahead. He would like to take my place, no matter how impossible that is. Well, you will be my guest for a while, and I think we'll do well to camp here overnight before heading home." Thockel frowned at her. "I'd prefer to leave the talisman and be off." "Would you? Think about the woods full of bear crowns, and not to mention Delthorio's people. Wouldn't you be safer with us?" "Do I dare turn you down? You might use the other fist on me." She chuckled. "I've declared to Steve, and don't press me too hard." Dr. Gavnish pronounced a phrase as he passed his hand through the air above the silver basin of water. The still water's face showed a swirling pattern of colors, which coalesced into a view of Hameldesh lying against a tree's root, 3 arrows at his chest, dead eyes staring. Producing the bespelled marble to track the ox driver was, as I said, a thing well within the powers of any hedge wizard, as was the matter of locating the item on which I had placed a spell. Sharing with others what my scrying bowl shows is considerably more difficult. But as you see, Captain Hameldish is dead. His quest has failed." Narnish scowled. "His second may be carrying on." "Leaving his captain and these others unburied? And leaving the enspelled marble with his dead captain? No, I believe that the talisman, if not delivered, is on the point of being delivered." "Mother Goddess toenails! Then the uprising will be coming shortly?" "Probably so. You've seen the reports from your garrisons regarding the discovery of secret training grounds in Ascos?" "Probably so." The king frowned deeply. "I think it is time to turn Central Ascos into a howling wilderness. My rule irks them, does it? They shall see how badly irked they can be." He turned to a scribe. "Make a note. Message to my lords. Tell them to muster for war." Lord Discoman took the paper from the courier, broke the broke the seal with his thumb and spread it out. War, then. The king bids us muster all forces for an attack on Ascos. War? Ah, the boy was eager. Well, he must see his first real fight, if not this year, then next. Yes, and before you ask, you will come with me. Volsiden was clearly restraining himself from jumping with glee, but Discoman could tell that he would likely do so alone in his own quarters. With a commendable effort at seriousness, he asked, what cause was given? An attack on the king's soldiers, and a general lack of respect for the crown. Now the boy frowned. For such matters ought the king not to first demand fine. Ought the king not to first? Oh my goodness! Yep. Okay. That's getting a mark. Ought the king not to first demand fines and hostages? The king is the king, and will do as he sees fit. And we would be best not to speak too loudly what the king ought and ought not to do. Yes, father. The boy was right, though. Narnish must have been seeking a pretext to march to Ascos again. Discoman's own agents reported some rumors of some dread talisman brought to Ascos, something that could sweep whole armies from a battlefield. Perhaps that was the real reason that Narnish wanted to strike before they could bring that weapon into play. Perhaps that rumor was something that Dr. Gobnash had started, to see where the rumor ended up at. Best for Discoman that he pretended not to know anything about that rumor. Let some poor fool fall into the trap. In the meantime, he still had the report, and it would not be taken by surprise if it turned out to be true. Would not be taken by surprise if it turned out to be true. This is the old palace of Ascos. It was not a prepossessing spectacle. The city walls themselves had not been well cared for, and the palace, for all that its roof lifted gently to a peak well above the rest of the city, was even more worn and battered. That same roof sagged in some places, and there were even obvious holes in it. As if she read his mind, Lucy said, "It's not so fair and wonderful as it ought to be. It was decided some time ago to only do the most minor repairs, so as not to give Narnish any excuse to attack again. We hold our business in one of the lesser wings and pretend to be harmless." Wiping out 300 bear crowns is not going to seem harmless. I know. We had little choice. But I suspect we shall be getting demands for reparations over that. We spin out negotiations long enough, we should be ready. You'll stay overnight? He grinned. Lady, for the last several days, ever since that fight, you've been working at me. You've convinced me to come here on the grounds that you'll be better able to supply me with horses and funds to go my way if I come here. I had scarce expected you to have things waiting here so I could ride off again immediately. Yes, I'm staying until morning. In the morning, after a night spent in a soft bed, so as not to be uncomfortable for a man not used to it, if truth be told, he talked with Lucy again. He noticed from the start that she had a different air today, a firmer one. He surmised she was about to talk him into staying. Before you begin, he said, I've talked to some people and it seems clear that you would like to be joining. Let me repeat that again. Did that wrong. I've talked to some people and it seems clear that joining you would be like tossing the dwarf's bones with one of them missing. I'm bound to have my fingers badly nipped. She took a deep breath. I'm sorry to hear you feel that way. There is another thing you may have overlooked, though. And that is? The spell that forced you to bring the talisman here was worded in terms of delivering it to Delthorio Henavoto. But Delthorio can't use it, so it is left with you. What do you think the spell will do if you leave without delivering it? That rendered Thoughtful speechless, because the truth was, he hadn't thought about it. It also sparked an intent to find some way out, and leave these people to their crazy doomed little doomed war. Lucy went on, I'd rather not have you work with us at all than work with us grudgingly. I'm willing to call in people to see what can be done about the talisman, both about having it attuned to you and about the spell that traps you here. But it will take time. Will you wait at least a little bit more? Thoughtful realized that for some strange reason, if she had sworn great oaths to make things happen, he would have accepted, but gone quietly about his endeavors. The simple statement that she'd see what could be done seemed much more believable. What do you plan? There are some wizards in the city. We can ask some of the more reputable ones. Thoughtful felt surprise and anger. You have wizards here, yet you had to send to Saragos for this thing. It's not quite that straightforward. Shortly after the present Narnish came to the throne, a man called Dr. Gobnash came to work for him. You must have heard rumors of him by now. Let me tell you, they're most likely accurate, no matter how horrible. He appears to have a method of tracking magic intended to harm the king, and spells to cause such things to go badly awry. Many magicians died terribly before we learned what was being done. Herzorio traveled to Saragos, which, he calculated, was beyond the reach of Dr. Gobnash's magic. However, Gobnash was not unaware of his journey and sent people after him. The rest of the story you know. Except, why does Gobnash not use his spell against me, or better yet, against you and your followers? She shrugged. I know little bits of this and that, but greater amounts I know nothing about. My guess is he can only attack people who are using or making magic, and that Herzorio, when he built the talisman, added to it a protection against such magic. After all, the most powerful talisman would be of no use if Gobnash could destroy its wielder long before he could use it. I see. Well, don't take all that and use it to make bets on. Most of it is my guesswork. Guesswork based on what I know, but guesswork all the same. So, when do I see the first of these magicians then? Do you fortuitously have one of them waiting outside at this very moment? She laughs. I wouldn't take you so much for granted. On the other hand, I doubt you'd be surprised to know that I already sent to some of them to have them come in, one at a time. Probably not until this afternoon at the earliest. He laughed in return. Probably the sooner the better, for both of us. The two king's guards strode into the blue loom, causing a ripple of silence to spread out from the doorway. Behind them came Dr. Gobnash, with two more guards following, holding up a battered and bruised man wearing a little more than rags. After them came the remainder of the troop. I doubt it would do any good to ask our... Wait. Too far down. Sorry. Now then, the man you saw here on several occasions, where did he sit? The man shivered, then pointed a trembling finger. I think there, by the wall. Dr. Gobnash's voice turned soft. No rush. We want to get this right. Close your eyes. Think back to the times you were in here when he was. Just let your mind see the interior of the place, the walls, the tables, various people here and there. The man comes in, and he sits down. Where? Yes, over by the wall, next to the gouge in the wall. You see it? Ah, good. You never heard a name put to him, did you? Think about that again. Did anyone ever call to him, greet him? They may have, but I've never heard it, I swear. The doctor sighed. Well, if we had, it might have made things a little bit easier. Oh well. Did he have a favorite chair? Well, he always sat with his back to the wall. I doubt it would do any good to ask our landlord how often chairs shift around. Captain, take all the chairs around that table. Make sure that our men handle them as little as possible with their bare hands. Bag them and deliver them to my workroom. And the prisoner? To my workroom as well. Sir! The parade went back through the city streets to the palace. People tended to look at them until they saw the slight figure in the sand-colored robes, and then they quickly turned their attention elsewhere. Up the stairs they went, and the guard waited while Dr. Gobnash unlocked his workroom, then ushered the prisoner and brought in the bagged chairs. Set the chairs over there. And the prisoner? Poor beggar can't stand up at all. There, that armchair. And then you can leave us. With the prisoner, sir? Come now, Captain. You don't think he's going to overcome me and escape, now do you? No, sir. Of course not, sir. Then there's nothing to be worried about, is there? Thank you, Captain, for your assistance. With a nod, the captain led his men out the door, leaving Gobnash and the prisoner alone. Dr. Gobnash went to work with a small knife, cutting the bags away from the chairs. After a moment, the prisoner spoke. Sir? Gobnash looked at him. Desperation had overcome his fear, and he rushed on to say, Sir, you promised I should go free in return for my assistance. The doctor smiled. And so I did. But freedom in your present condition would do you little good, would it? He walked to a sideboard and poured a large cup of wine. Here, drink this and relax. He watched as the man drank it and nodded approval. The doctor went back to his work, and the man slipped sideways in his chair, breathing slowly. The doctor nodded once more and continued with his work. Dr. Gobnash reported to King Narnash at midday. A close look at the doctor's face showed that he was a little more lined than usual. You will be happy to know, Highness, that I have more information for you on the man who hired the dead spy. Indeed? You discovered it by means of the chairs from the Blue Loon? Exactly, sir. The man was almost certainly sent from the lands of Lord Discoman Rudishan. And you were able to discover this from the chairs? Unlike some things, this was no mere hedge wizardry. But the short answer is, yes, I was. You see, Highness, anything that contacts another thing leaves some trace there, no matter how minute. A living being touching something, particularly for so long a period as a night in an inn, will leave definite traces. Even so, separating out the traces we seek from all the other traces and contaminations is not an easy matter, though it can be done if one has the skill and the ability. I found that a man, one who wore a green jacket and leather cap, had sat in one of the chairs. In fact, at some time, he sat in 3 of the 4, though one of them contained the strongest traces. Concentrating some of these traces, I steeped a wooden pendulum in them, then swung the pendulum over a map. The pendulum came to rest, pointing to the land of Lord Discoman. So we know one of my lords is spying on me. No doubt most of them are, but I shall have to make an example. No arrest and execution, I think. Just death from ambush. Something I can decry loudly, though those who matter will know what has happened. He put his hands on his knees and leaned forward. What of his talisman? No news of its whereabouts? Not really news, Highness. It had most certainly been delivered. though the shield around it is too powerful for me to detect its exact location. However, given the care that these rebels have been taking, I doubt if it's in the same place as the leader. Bloody destroyer's teeth! You had led me to believe your powers were unmatched. And yet, here is this talisman, very dangerous to us, and you still have no idea what it might do, and no idea where it is. Dr. Gobnash seldom showed anger, and in this case, he merely raised his brows a trifle. Highness, I assure you that most would have little or no notion at all that there was a talisman about, much less tell you any further where it might be. Narnish sat tapping a finger on a thigh for a little, then said, So, you have done as well as you can. Now go do even better and let me know what this talisman is before my army and I find out. So to our sorrow. They held a small gathering in one of the smaller chambers, cleared out for such meetings. It had high ceilings and gray walls, and only a few hangings, faded and worn, hung on the walls depicting scenes of better times. Oh my goodness, okay, that's the problem. Give me a minute, guys. The wizard was old, though not markedly so. He wore an ordinary tunic and trousers, like any merchant in their original... Wait a minute. He wore an ordinary tunic and trousers like any merchant, and their original dark brown had faded to a piebald pattern of brown and lighter brown. His beard was a wild nest on his chin, still brown with a few gray wisps. Baldness had bared his head from forehead to crown with a gray ruff round it, showing an occasional hint of the original brown. His right forefinger was stained from tip to the first joint, the tip being dull black, the region further up showing the black that had been the host of colors. Lucy introduced them. Thuckle, this is Arnatio. Arnatio smiled, holding up his hand. I see you noticing my finger. My specialty is alchemy, and from time to time I touch and test certain things. No, not the most powerful caustics or acids, of course, but the result is, as you see. Thuckle had little notion what a caustic was, and even less about acids. He only nodded politely. The wizard either ignored or didn't notice Thuckle's plight, for he went on. The ladies explained the situation to me. Suppose you do the same to ensure that we are not working at cross purposes here. Well, the wizard Herzorio laid it on me the duty... Okay, give me a minute here. The wizard Herzorio laid it on me the duty of delivering this talisman to Delthorio Henavoto. Being on the point of death, he did not explain the nature of talismans to me, so that in carrying it under my shirt, I apparently attuned it to myself. What I need is to be able to deliver the talisman and be on my way. It seems to me to be that freeing the talisman from my control would be best. Otherwise, I would like the spell removed and allow me to leave Ascos. Aranatio frowned, raking his fingers absently through his beard. I see, he said slowly. Well, I can tell you, dying spells are tricky things. I would be particularly loath. That's not loth, it should be loath. Loath. To tamper with one cast by Herzorio. Such spells use power afforded by death, you see. However, given the specific command and circumstances, the spell will likely fade in time. He glanced at Lucy, then back at Thuckle. It is highly likely, for instance, that the spell would dissipate if Dalthorio were to die. This is not certain, though. Now, tuning the spell anew, this might be possible. It would require you and Dalthorio to be in the same place while a series of spells were cast. The spell would be from Dr. Gobnish, of whom you will certainly have heard. At some point, such an extensive casting will certainly catch his attention, no matter how indirectly it aims at the overthrow of Narnash. And at a particular stage, lasting for hours at least, perhaps as long as a day, the shielding aspect of the talisman will be weakened or removed altogether. I'm sure you realize what this means. And any other wizard you might find for me would say the same? She frowned at him. You trust nothing and no one, do you, Thoughtful? Is there some promise I could make, some oath I could swear that would convince you that I have not suborned Arnatio? Thoughtful, uncomfortably aware that Arnatio was there watching the argument, continued to stare at her for a moment, and then sighed. Trust is a difficult thing, and a man living as I have learns to be sparing with it, perhaps too much so. I accept your word. What next? She did not answer at once, but first turned to Arnatio. Thank you, Arnatio. My chancellor will have your payment. The wizard bowed and left them. When the door closed behind him, she turned back to Thoughtful and said, I would ask you to use the talisman as Dalthorio would have done, and join this straw by fire uprising of yours to be burned up by the flame of Narnash's rage? I would need considerable inducement for that. Would it be an inducement to consider that whether you join us or reject us, your possession of the talisman will condemn you to in the minds of Narnash and his wizard Gobnash? An inducement indeed. I was thinking, though, of the kind of inducement that also could be used to buy food and lodging. You need have no fear of that for that so long as you are with us. And when the fight is done, will I be kept at your table like an old horse whose usefulness is at an end, but for whose sentiment's sake is stabled and fed? She pursed her lips as if seeing for the first time. No, that would hardly suit you, would it? What then? 20 gold coins? 50. Hardly possible. Perhaps 25? For 25, I hardly get out of the bed in the morning. 40. I can go 35 and that at the risk of depriving others. 35 then. 20 now, and the balance when the job is done. 1 now, with your food and keep. 7 with food and keep. 5, and there is no one who could ever demand such a bargain of me. 5 then. Thoughtful was not going to admit it, but he had never in his life had so much as 5 gold coins at one time. Not even the equivalent in silver, which was much safer for one of his status to possess. So then, what is this talisman? What does it do? I have no idea. I've never looked at the thing. Only carried it in a leather bag from there to here. Have I bought a shoat in a bag then? How do you know this thing does what it's supposed to do? I suppose we shall have to look at it then? He fetched the bag from under his shirt and opened it. Inside was another leather bag with a leather cord, carefully wound around about its mouth. There was also a leather scroll rolled and tied with a small leather cord. Some words were scorched on one invisible corner. Thockle put his hand on the bag and opened it. Wait, Lucy said. He looked up at her. Look, the scroll says, read this first. What? That writing. She pointed at it and looked down at him again. You can't read, can you? And apparently that's how we leave off the chapter. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it tonight. I'm going to have to hopefully, yeah, you're gonna have to read the chat, but there was some issues going on earlier, so I have to kind of take care of that. But good, I'm glad you enjoyed it.